Is Abs from October Red, joined by Eddie Hearn. Welcome back, Eddie, and how are you?
I'm good. I'm tired, a bit tired. I mean, last week was unbelievable in Dublin, and I got like a 6 o'clock flight back from Dublin. I had to leave the hotel at 4:30 because one of my daughters was playing football. I thought it's her last game of the season, and when I got back to the room at 2:30, I couldn't sleep and ended up not sleeping. I was like a zombie. And then Monday, I was like knackered, and then fight week's here again, and you got to go again. But then once you start realising the card, the excitement, kind of just go on autopilot. So it's been a long run, and it's like I think we've got 8 shows in the next 10 weeks. So got to just stay on it, get in the gym, get some sleep, and just live and breathe it.
My mum used to say to me, "You'll sleep when you're dead." Yeah. You are that type of guy.
Yeah, I am, but also I understand the importance of sleep, and I'll never get enough. But this week, I'm looking to bank some serious sleep,
Well, at least you're sort of close to home. But I want to touch on last week's card. The energy from Ireland, the reception that you received, the first show over there, the arena filling up quite significantly and quite quickly. Talk to us about your experience.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, when you go somewhere and there are people walking around on the street saying, "Oh, thanks for bringing boxing back to Ireland," it's a great feeling. And when I walked in there at 5 o'clock and the doors opened, there was about 1,500 people in there straight away for the first fight. And at 6:45, there was 7,000 people in there. And that's great because a lot of people are talking about at the moment, like with the Misfits fights, that people on boxing shows sit in the bars till the chief support and main event when there's so much to see. And that was so pleasing, and the atmosphere, one of the best I've seen. The visuals didn't quite go the way for Ireland, but it doesn't matter. Like at high level sport, you win, you lose, and we'll be back in October, November, and it's just a very memorable night.
We talk about a memorable night, and maybe, like you said, there were some fights that didn't have the best outcome. I'm going to talk about, a rising star of yours, Gary Cully. You've backed him, as you do. You see him as a serious talent. You're sat ringside and you see him lose. As a promoter, like I said, I know you can be quite ruthless, but what are your thoughts when you see your fighter lose?
Well, firstly, you're gutted because you've made an investment. I've put him on all these good shows. But when you know a fighter and you know how hard they work and you know how genuine they are, your first thing is, I'm gutted for them. And the second one is, it's about the get back. It's about how do we bounce back from that. Sometimes, when a fighter loses, first thing people say is they look at the opponent, right? Why'd you put him in with him? The guy was coming off 2 defeats out of 3. Tyrone McKenna beat him on points. Sandor Martin beat him on points. We're talking about Gary Cully as a top fighter at 135 pounds. He's got to be dealing with fighters like that. So, he can punch. Of course he can punch. What do you want to fight? You never want to fight a puncher, and it was a devastating defeat. And then other people will say, well, you hyped him up too much. Well, that's our job. I'm a promoter. It's my job to hype a fighter. When I've got great young talent that I think can headline in Dublin, I'm going to hype him up. You've got to be able to deal with that. Now, whether it was the media he did in the week, whether it was the weight, whether it was the ring walk, whether it was, or whether he just got carried away with his chin in the air and started trading up and got chinned. Whatever it was, doesn't matter. It's happened. Now, you've got to come back, and he'll come back. He's a very good fighter with a good head on his shoulders, and he's young. And sometimes that's the best thing that can happen to you because we all get carried away. He's beaten nobody really in his last 3 fights. We're talking about him fighting for the world lightweight title. Now the reins are on, rebuild and come again.
When you matchmake your fights, you are known. You'll give them not an easy run, but you'll give them manageable fights to start off with. Then when you start to talk about them or really go in hard with the promotion, you're known to put your fighters in with tests. I know you said, his opponent was beaten by credible people before, so he should have done it. But there is a point where you do like to step your opponents up.
That actually wasn't it. He was 20-1 on in that fight to win that fight.
Okay.
Not one person talked about the potential of Gary Cully losing that fight. Now, we were talking about him fighting Jorge Linares, Angel Fierro, like these guys, levels and levels above Jose Felix. But we ended up settling, really, for Jose Felix. Now, when you talk about matchmaking opponent, you send names to the team, and the training team says him. So Gary Cully's training team and management said, we like Jose Felix. He's a come-forward fighter. He's a little bit dangerous. He's a good test. He's a good learning fight. And they come unstuck. Now, the difference between matchmaking with a Mexican fighter and a fighter from, random, Czechoslovakia is different intentions, right? One guy comes and goes, oh, thank you for the opportunity, thank you for the money, I'll go in there, I'll survive a little bit. Jose Felix comes and apologises to me at the press conference saying, I'm sorry for beating your guy on Saturday. I'm going to beat this guy and then you're going to give me a massive fight on the Canelo undercard, whatever. And you're like, okay. Like, it's a different kind of energy, but I want that. I don't want the guy who turns up and goes, I'm here to survive and get my money. I want the guy that comes to win. And by the way, if you're not good enough, you ain't going to win anyway. So Gary Cully wasn't good enough. Don't worry about, oh, it was a tough opponent. It wasn't. It was a good fighter who was hungry, who was limited, who was, rough. But he's limited. We're talking about a guy we believe can win world titles at 135. If you can't beat Jose Felix, you ain't ready to fight for a world title. So it's okay. But we learn and we go again.
Another fight, obviously the headline, Katie Taylor versus Chantal Cameron. First of all, I'd like to say what an incredible performance from Chantal Cameron. She was able to make that fight her own, something that Chantal's proven time and time again. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we do the same thing, like I said about the Cully defeat. Yeah. We start talking about why Katie Taylor didn't look at her best, rather than going, wow, what a great performance from Chantal Cameron. I said in the build-up to that fight, Chantal Cameron needs to turn this into a fight ASAP. She did it after 30 seconds. Normally, after 4 or 5 rounds, Katie's 3 or 4-0 up, and you're chasing the fight, and she's making you pay, and she's, then she gets into a war in 8, 9, 10. She was in a war from the first round. She did look tired, and whether that was the occasion or whatever, or whether that was the body punching, the engine of Chantal Cameron. Chantal Cameron weren't tired after that fight. Katie looked exhausted. So, you have to give massive credit to Chantal. She's beaten the reigning 147-pound undisputed champion. She's beaten the reigning 135-pound undisputed champion. And she's a pound-for-pound star in her own right. So, great performance from her.
When you talk about moving forward, I know that you've said that, there's going to be a rematch. Is there any possibility of the rematch being paused and Chantal going on to achieve more things? Or is it definitely, this is the rematch next?
I mean, it's definitely the biggest fight for both.
Yeah.
And, although Chantal's stock has risen incredibly, she still needs that dance partner, as Katie does, for the mega fight, There is a chance we could fight Amanda Serrano next, still at 135, but I know Katie Taylor will just want revenge. And it's a very dangerous fight. There's so many similarities here between Canelo and Bivol in that fight. Everyone's saying to Canelo, oh, I don't know if I about rematching Bivol. And they'll probably say to Katie, I don't know about rematching Chantal, but they're fighters. They're greats. They want to avenge that defeat. So we'll have to see what plays out in the next couple of weeks.
Katie Taylor, and understandably, really looked at a loss when obviously the fight was announced that she didn't come through. Katie Taylor's kind of like your baby, the one that you started it off, the one that you said, you know what, like you said, even to your dad's disagreements, I am going to push females in fighting forward. I'm going to do this. So when you're sat there, you see Katie, you know the trials, the tribulations, everything you've been through with her. How did you feel?
I didn't talk to her too much after the fight because she wouldn't really want to talk to anyone. What I said to her was, how do you feel? What do you think? And she said, she's devastated. I said, I didn't think you looked fit in there. I think, I don't know whether she was carrying injury, whatever it was, and I don't like to talk about that because we want to dine out on the great performance from Chantal. But you look tired. And my next question was, does it hurt? And she said, what do you mean? I said, does it hurt right now? She said, like, more than you can imagine. I said, good. That's all I need to know. Because if it didn't, it's the end. Do you know what I mean? I said, this could be your greatest chapter. And she said, it feels like the worst dream I've ever had. And I said, good. Because you've got to go away. When AJ got beat to Ruiz, I went round his flat in Manhattan he was staying in, and he was like, oh yeah, and I knew, like, he was like dying inside. And that's all great competitors. When I went to see Canelo Alvarez the day after he boxed Bivol on the golf course, I've never seen him in a mood like it. Furious, like trying to still be, but absolutely, like, he was standing over golf shots, like just and I just thought, wow, you are in, and difficult in a way. People see the success of victory, but they don't see the struggle of defeat. And they don't, when you're a winner and when it's everything to you, the pain of that defeat, you can't imagine. Forget the physical pain, but the mental and the emotional pain of getting beat for those people, you have no idea of how big that is. And for Katie now, every day, all she'll be thinking about is a rematch. She'll be dying inside. She'll be furious. She'll be angry. She'll be moody. But that's what's going to spur you on. If you didn't have those things, I would say it's time to retire. Show me the hunger, and I see that from great fighters.
Touching on that, the fans, that sometimes we can be inconsiderate and we'll say, cliche things like, I'd rather be crying in a mansion. In other words, you've been paid. What are you moaning about? What is it that differentiate these fighters? And they are prize fighters. They fight for money. But what does it become of them when it's not about the money?
It doesn't matter where you live. If you're living in pain, it's irrelevant. Like, you could be living in a one-bedroom house, happy as a pig in shit, sitting there like with a massive smile on your face. You're a lot happier than Katie Taylor or AJ in a massive house coming off a defeat. But you have to care, and it has to hurt. That's what I say to all fighters after defeat. Remember this feeling right now. Bottle it up, and when you start camp, remember how it made you feel. Do you want to feel like that again? I'll do anything not to feel like that. I'm going to make sure I don't feel like that again. But, when you talk about struggles and that kind of stuff, there's more to life in terms of struggles than a financial struggle. Of course, in an ideal world, everyone wants money, and money does solve a lot of problems. But it doesn't take away pain. It doesn't take away unhappiness, especially when you're a competitor and you're a winner. So, that's why they would say, well, give my purse away. If I could just switch it for a win. Give all my purses away. Give my entire purses, my whole career away if you can just switch that back for a win. That's all they care about. And, it's people don't understand. I think it's not just fighters. It's the sacrifices that athletes make and the pressure they put on themselves to perform. The ups are incredible, but the downs are brutal. And when you live a balanced, uncomplicated life, the swings are very different. Things can go wrong, but how wrong can they really go? And things can go good, but how good can they really go? You know what I mean? When you live a simple life without real ambition. But when you have ambition, when you have a burning desire, when you have the winning mentality, the win is everything. And the journey to that victory and the highs are incredible. But the defeats and the lows are brutal. And people struggle to deal with those. And Katie Taylor will be struggling to deal with it. She'll be with her family. She'll be smile. But deep down, she may be crying herself to sleep every night. But that's the demand of a winner, of an athlete, of a competitor. That's why you see people break down in tears when they don't achieve something or a decision go. Lomachenko, great example. AJ, when he lost to Usyk. You see all this stuff, you see a grown man, a champion, a legend, break down in tears in front of the world. I love it. It's called hungry. It's called caring. It's called competitive. It's called winning. It's called pain. And you only learn from pain. That's the difference. You don't become better through just consistently everything's going all well. You learn from the pain. You learn from the discomfort. You learn from putting yourself in difficult situations. So she'll be back.
I'd have absolutely no doubt that she will be back. But one of the things that I wanted to mention to you, I spoke to ex-world champion who's now a Sky pundit, Johnny Nelson. I did ask him if I was all right to mention this to you, and he said, yep. He said, your father was one of the first people that set up kind of like pensions with the fighters. And at the time, people were screaming that it was a stupid thing to do and it was discontinued. However, Johnny was saying that he received his pension and he was like, oh my God, I remember that. Is that something moving forward that you consider doing again? We've got mental health in boxing. We've got the continuous injuries, some kind of scheme to help the fighters.
Yeah, it's difficult when you have so many fighters. Do you know what I mean? And it's difficult, most of the fighters that we represent, most of them leave the sport, financially secure. But there is a huge amount of, I think the pension stuff is a good idea, and he's the financial expert in that respect. He's a chartered accountant. He's a wizard in that respect. I'm more about aftercare, sort of mental and social aftercare for a fighter, because you see so many fighters, whether it's Kell, whether it's Scott Fitzgerald, all these fighters go through their problems, but who is there to help them? Again, it's difficult to hold their hand. Now, when the Scott Fitzgerald stuff came out, it's like, Eddie, did you not do anything? Yes, I had dozens of phone calls. I had hours on the phone to Scott trying to help. But ultimately, if they don't want help, you can't spend your time driving up to Preston trying to drag him out of here, drag him out of there, take him here if you don't want to receive it. So I like, and it's really the sports obligation. I'm talking about the British Boxing Board of Control.
Yeah.
But also, if we're financially benefiting off the sport, which we are, we should give back in that respect as well. I like to see former fighters. One of the most pleasing things I've seen recently was when I see Louis Van Pooch, the journeyman who had, a couple of hundred fights, sitting at ringside with his British Boxing Board of Control shirt on, being a trainee judge, right? We need younger fighters or ex-fighters coming through the sport to be officials. Not just that, coaches, trainers. I would like to help put some kind of scheme in place so that people can stay in boxing. Because really, the loss of boxing from your life fills a tremendous void, right? Whether you're a fighter, I know that if I walked away from boxing tomorrow, I'd miss it like mad. And I don't know if I'd have the same highs or the same lows. I don't know if I'd struggle. Maybe. But I know the fighter would, because the highs that they have, of those fights, and then all of a sudden, no training camp, no camaraderie in the gym. Now it's like, I'm going to retire. Okay, mate, well, listen, it's been great. Thanks a lot. See you later. Off you go. I'll get a job, or what do I do? And next thing, I'm depressed. I haven't got the highs. I'm not training. I've put on weight. Now I'm drinking. Now, like that spiral happens real fast. So for me, it's about keeping people in the sport. Some people don't want to stay in the sport. Some people have made their money, or they go, oh, I'm done with boxing, But there's always jobs and positions. But I feel like that should also come from a governing body. But we should help facilitate that as well. And for me, the pension stuff's great, but it's more about the aftercare for fighters to make sure we look after them during their career and after their career if we can.
I love that. And I've got to touch on, obviously, finally, is this card. We talk about hunger, we talk about pain, we talk about passion, we talk about Lee Wood, the towel going in, his last fight with Maurizio Lara, the determination from him to right that wrong. What is it like for you as a promoter to promote a fighter like that?
Yeah, I think, you want people. I probably didn't try and convince him, but I gave him the option to wait and I want someone to say no, really. I mean, I don't really want him to say, I don't like step-asides. I don't like, is there any money in it for me? I like the winners who go, oh, no, absolutely not. Oh, yeah, but you can wait. I don't want to wait because I don't trust what might happen. It's there for me. I'm taking it. I know I can win. And if he wins, he becomes a two. When I said to him in that presser, if you win on Saturday, you become a two-time world champion. His face lit up as if to go, wow, I never thought I'd be a world champion, let alone a two-time world champion. So I'll tell you, he's right in this fight on Saturday, but it's going to be very dangerous.
A dangerous fight indeed. So you said that you've got some fights mapped out for the rest of the year. Are there any dates that you haven't yet published that you'd like to give me as an exclusive?
I mean, yeah, look, we got May 27th, Wood against Lara. June 3rd, no show next week. June 10, Sonny Edwards for the world title, and Ellie Scottney against Shanika Johnson, Johnny Fisher, Chev, Nina Hughes, etc. June 17, we're in New Orleans for Regis Prograis defending his world title. June 24th, we're in Madison Square Garden for Edgar Berlanga against Quigley. July 1st, we're in Sheffield for Dalton Smith against Sam Maxwell. July 7th, we're in Mexico for Diego Pacheco headlining. The 15th, we're in Detroit for Alicia Baumgardner. The 22nd, maybe no show. 29th looks like could be Fabio Wardley in the UK, looking to maybe headline him and maybe cash against Williams. And then the following week could be AJ back, the 5th or the 12th. But basically like 8 or 9 shows in the next 10 or 11 weeks, so non-stop.
How's Fabio Wardley been since purse bid debacle?
Yeah, good. I mean, we all played it very well. I mean, we made people look very silly, but that's great. But now we've got to fight. Do you know what I mean? So David Adelaide will be the next mandatory. I spoke to George Warren yesterday. So we're going to make our fight in July. I think David's fighting in June. And then we're going to fight. Big fight.
We like it. And Anthony Joshua, the rumours are it is Dillian White. I think Dillian White said something somewhere where he basically said he thinks that AJ's like lost his heart, lost his courage. Your thoughts on that and building that fight again?
AJ's in Texas in camp with no fight scheduled. I don't think he's lost his desire or his heart, or he wouldn't bother. He doesn't need to fight. He loves to fight. He's improving, and I think Dillian White could be next in August, but we'll have to see how everything plays out.
Brilliant. Eddie, as per usual, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you fight night.
See you there.
Hi, and thank you for watching October Red Boxing. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell for notifications. You can also find us on Instagram at October Red Boxing and on Twitter October Red UK. And remember, at October Red, we stay ready.